right. Welcome to Midway USA, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Henry Chan.
And I am Josh. We're from 9-Hole Reviews, and today we're in the time machine again, Henry. It's 2005, 2008. You and I just met.
Yeah.
And the debate has begun. The Aimpoint versus the Eotech.
This did not exist.
This was
back
not
then.
the Aimpoint we were talking about.
This is the Aimpoint we were talking about. Which one's the Eotech that we're talking
Dude,
about?
I don't even have a 512 anymore.
This is close enough. So, Aimpoint.
The new. This is like 3 models later.
Still, Aimpoint versus Eotech. I mean, I would say both of these aiming solutions are relatively unchanged. I mean, the big things, what? Battery life, diode technology, but the concept of it hasn't really changed a lot. So I remember back then, I mean, yeah, it was a huge debate. Do you want an Aimpoint or do you want an Eotech for your duty rifle? And so here we are. Have we answered the question with a few more years, or have we made it even more convoluted?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the latter.
So let's go down this conversation a little bit, because for me, respect.
I'm gonna.
Oh, go ahead.
I gotta give Eotech its chance here.
And this was your competition, PCC?
It is.
All right.
Yes,
So,
we can also shoot with this. Yes, it also can hit the target. Yes. And I did, just out of habit, turn off the optic because, well, that's one of the major things we'll get into here in just a second.
for me, I am a major Aimpoint consumer. I do have EOTechs, but my EOTechs typically are on clone stuff.
Yeah.
Like AKs and stuff around my EOTechs.
Sure.
I run a lot of Aimpoints.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know if it's like a confidence thing that I've had from the military. Of course, we ran a lot of Comp M2s and Comp M4s. The M68 CCO is what we called it. And so that's an optic I'm very, very comfortable with, specifically on rifles, setting a 200 meter zero and basically using that as a point of aim, point of impact from 0 to 300 meters. So most of my stuff is Aimpoint, and you know, between the battery life, the ease of use, that's it. And so I will have to defer to you on some of the Eotech
Yeah,
stuff.
I think I've probably spent more time bouncing around between a bunch of different optics, including not just the 2 on this, on the title of this, which is really what we're going to get into, is the proliferation of the market in this particular space. But I would say back in the day, the major thought process was, and again, some of this is still true. The Aimpoint, you generally are talking about a smaller overall window and a refined aiming point, a singular dot. Whereas with the Eotech, you've got that larger, boxier window to be looking through. And you also have the famous donut of death style reticle, which some people will argue they're faster with. After shooting both of them a ton, I don't really know that I'm faster with the dot and donut versus just the dot. And that's not even a conversation about Eotech versus Aimpoint. That's just literally like reticles in general. I might even be faster with like a crosshair reticle, to be honest with you, when I go into LPVOs, because of the time that you spend shooting with these various things.
So again, we go back to the question, like, why Eotech or why Aimpoint? Like, what is the rationale if you shoot crosshairs potentially even faster than
Well,
those
I think
things?
that was one of the main key debates. And I'm sure that people in the comments will probably still say, well, I shoot the dot and donut better or faster or whatnot. Or I prefer the battery life in the Aimpoint, the set it and forget it style nature of that particular optic as compared to the Eotech, where you're changing the batteries more frequently. But when we look at the modern market and where we sort of have come to today with these 2 optics, really you're looking at something like the H2s, the T2s, which are these smaller footprint optics, and the EXPS style Eotechs, which are, again, much smaller than they used to be. The 512s, I remember, were like stuck out like super long. So these are a much smaller optic than they were back in the day. So even now, that dichotomy might even draw further, right, in terms of like the window size, because most people aren't running the Aimpoint like Comp M4s. Most people aren't. Most of the time, the footprints that we're gravitating to, just when we look at the table of like modern guns and modern optics, it's these smaller micro dot footprint style optics that we see on more and more rifles out there. Again, these happen to be Aimpoints, but I know you also have an example of one that isn't an Aimpoint on the table because of how popular this particular optic footprint has got, because it is such a small size and weight impact to your overall setup. And frankly, that's one of the major considerations when choosing an optic, is how much weight is it adding to the rifle. Right?
Now, I would say honestly, as far as a weight category, the Aimpoint T2s or these Holosuns, which is, it's a copy of the concept of the T2, I would say. So it delivers a lot of parallel capabilities, not as durable as a T2, I would say. But that's like asking which wrench is more durable at throwing it on the ground. Like, the T2 is so bulletproof that it's difficult to say this is less and therefore it's less.
Right, it's still like better than like what anyone would probably need. Right?
Compared to when we got into it with Comp M2s, these things are infinitely more durable and lightweight and easy to use. Now, this is a Holosun. I would say the Holosun 503s, one of the things that really attracted me to the Holosuns is that the Primary Arms actually offers these with the ACSS reticle. And so that reticle, if you were to use it up close, kind of resembles more so the Eotech reticle than the single dot. But it's not, that's not the reason I gravitate towards these, but rather the reticle has some bullet drop compensating characteristics to it, and I could put a magnifier behind it and get some type of bullet drop compensation to it to give me a little bit better range when I'm using something like this. But up close, to be honest, with both eyes open, this feels like I'm using an Eotech more than a more than the Aimpoint.
So you're associating the characteristic of the Eotech style of the dot and donut, not necessarily the housing.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And because again, shooting both eyes open, you're able to really, you can at least offset having a really tight, condensed, small optic while shooting both eyes open, because you're getting still the full view, right?
Yeah.
And so you can semi-negate the advantage of the larger window in something like the Eotech for daylight outdoor shooting.
Correct. And battery life is better than the Eotechs on these. Now, I will say though, shooting aside, put shooting stuff aside. These things, Aimpoints and the diode technology, it's projecting an image onto a surface and you see a dot floating in the middle. That's how it works. Eotechs, and I have my Vortex UH1 here, these things are super cool in the sense that it's using lasers to make a holographic image. And that holographic image shows you where you're supposed to aim. And so as just someone who's interested in science, that's really interesting. The downside of it, that technology uses a lot more battery life.
So it's very interesting because I've seen people debate this like ad nauseum about which one is better or which one is faster, and they put different names to holographic versus red dot, and a holographic is going to be faster for this reason. Like, frankly, I don't know about you, but like baloney. You can shoot both of them extremely fast. I've never looked at one and gone, oh, I can shoot this faster because of the technology in which the dot is being displayed.
I mean, I would say Eotechs, kind of like the ACSS, has a bullet drop reticle.
They do have some. That's
that
right.
You could use a magnifier behind it and get some type of bullet drop compensation capability. But that's unlike the Holosun. You would actually need a magnifier. Otherwise, it washes because
of some of the pixelation and
the laser reticle is a little bit too pixelated.
So maybe that's an example of a case where that actually can impact your shooting. It's not your speed shooting.
Right.
It's not reflexive shooting.
Right. It's distance using
shooting.
your bullet drop compensation.
Okay, so it's impossible for us to say that all aim points that we're talking about are micro aim points, right? So the weight categorization doesn't necessarily always hold true, but what I can tell you is that for guns like this setup, for example, a compact sort of SMG subgun PCC sort of setup, PDW maybe. On something like this, where I'm actually maximizing for performance, this is a place where I am running the micro dots almost exclusively. I might even be using like a true, even like acro style dot,
Right.
like
an actual micro,
micro,
like a real
micro
micro,
dot,
yeah.
right? Because these things were really focused on size and weight constraints, right? And that might not necessarily be true for something larger, like a full-size gun, like this one. Even though it is shooting 9mm, it is a full-size configuration, and as a result, we're less concerned. We're less concerned about the size and weight impacts and implications. So one of the major considerations would be size and weight.
Now, on the weight side, sorry, I'm not considered about size on this thing, but with an Allen Engineering can, which is heavy, AK, heavy, all of that, with the LAM unit, heavy, well, the Zenico, specifically the Zenico purse units are heavy. Having a light, heavy. I'm trying to find the lightest optical solution that gives me bullet drop compensation to extend the use of this particular AK, we call it the AK9er system. And so for me, the HoloSun with the ACSS reticle makes sense for this because I am focused on the weight considerations on it, specifically the weight.
So your size and weight considerations are definitely part of this. Again, it's not universal to all Aimpoints because you could still go out and get a ginormo Comp M4, right? But the micro footprint versions do carry with it that significant advantage in size and weight. There is versatility that you get out of numerous reticle options in the Eotech platform that isn't there on the Aimpoint platform. That do require some very specific considerations like running the magnifier, but they do exist. But moreover, I think what you've demonstrated here is that what we've seen other peripheral companies do over the last 15 years, since the original debate of Aimpoint versus Eotech, is take the feature sets that we found most attractive in these various optics and combine them into different variations or different offerings that are available out there on the market.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you see a drastic reduction in price of those other optics as those companies compete against each other.
Right.
Whereas Aimpoint is just getting more expensive. It's just getting more expensive. Eotechs, they're just getting more expensive. And I think in many parts it probably has to do with military contracts and things of that nature. To go out and get a T2 today, you're spending what, $800 plus or something like that? Whereas you can pick up other offerings, including things like the H2 even, for far less. But if you're okay with going to different brands, it doesn't, and this is where there's a geopolitical considerations and things like that some people might want to take into account. But from a use perspective, we've shot the HoloSun stuff, we've shot the primary arms stuff, we've shot Vortex stuff. All of these different options, all of these different dots that are available with different configurations and feature sets, all really tend to be very effective, especially for like a domestic civilian use case.
Absolutely. Even I would say for law enforcement use, because you're specifically, so the downside of the Eotech for me, if I were military, comes down to battery life. I want something that I could keep on because I don't know what I need it for in what environment. And so for me, the reason I drift towards Aimpoint is because I just keep it on.
Yeah.
And so those things, they are able to accomplish that with the diode technology that the Swedes have.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about Eotech, however, I was not special operations, but a lot of special operations guys tend to look at Eotech because of their night vision use.
Yes, and that's a great final point to sort of round this conversation out. I mentioned earlier that you can get away with using these in terms of the daylight, like both eyes open style shooting, but an area that the Eotech has just radical advantage, in my opinion, is shooting it through night vision, where you're shooting through the optic, right? So as you can see, like this particular configuration isn't set up for night shooting, but with the Unity mount on something, on a different rifle, for example, you can be shooting right through the optic, looking right through the optic through your tubes, and the light transmission through the larger window of the Eotech, and I'm sure that there's some other sciencey stuff about the actual Eotech window that facilitates this. but it's infinitely, again in my experience, infinitely easier to use than trying to get behind the T2, for example, and use that in a night vision setting. So again, a lot of this comes down to not necessarily Aimpoint versus EOTech, which is part of the joke, part of why this was such a hot debate in the early 2000s, right? It's about selecting a feature set that's important to you. And that feature set might be size and weight, it might be battery life, it might be reticle selection and choice, it might be night vision use, and a number of other potential factors come into play there. Maybe even clone correct might be part of the factors that you're considering.
But now I would at the end of this, each of these optics are perfectly fine, in my opinion, for 90 to 95% of the situations. And if it's not, you can use Aimpoints with night vision without an issue.
Yep.
You can use Eotechs with rechargeable batteries, even though it's not 100% ideal, or you could just keep on buying batteries to run Eotechs.
Yep, sure, you just be more diligent about keeping up with your battery changes.
It comes down to knowing what the downsides of these optic choices are, and flexing on the positive attributes of them to kit whatever you need to kit out to do whatever you need to do.
And just to that point, we have an example of a personal gun with an Aimpoint and a personal gun with an Eotech based upon the use cases I had for these. This one more of a duty style configuration, and this one something where I was going for maximum performance in terms of close range shooting, and that's just how I happened to fall on this particular setup, right?
Yep.
So with that, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video. As always, we'll see you on the range.
716 is Geonet 6, 4 Vic, 8 packs, Redcon 1, green to green. How copy, over?
096, this is 716, roger, over. 16, 091, 1 pack, green, green, over. This is 716, roger, over.
16, 2, 1 Victor, 2 packs, Redcon 1, over.